So some children behave contrary to that. So this is something which is expected out of their age and their stage of development, but they do not behave like that. They go contrary to that. They behave in a different, contrary, in a very opposite pattern. It has been seen that children suffer from various psychosocial impairments and impediments according to Individuals and Disability Education Act, which is IDE 2004. One or more of the following characteristic may be exhibited if for over a long period of time by a child with an emotional or behavioral disturbances. So speaking, we will talk about some of the, according to ID, which was the Individuals with Disability Education Act. It is stated that one of the followings will be exhibited by children if they are going through some of the emotional problems, some social disturbances, some behavioral issues that they have. So, such the criteria in the statements are following: lack in ability to learn, which cannot be obtained by intellectual, sensory, or physical medication condition. So, lack of any sort of an ability and skill in the child, which cannot be obtained by just skilling the child in their physical medical condition or also by their intellectual or sensory condition. Then, difficulty in building or maintaining social satisfactory interpersonal relationships, which are social relationships also with your friends, with your teachers. General interaction which we expect out of children makes the child withdrawn. Also, have poor self-esteem, do not hold themselves really well amongst other kids when they do not know about their own their own understanding of themselves. Also, their reaction to the outer world is just contained within their own self, and psyche are not played out. That means, let's take an example. We take a child on a social, in a social gathering where we expect the child to interact and, state that this is something that they're going through, and this is something, or probably just a general introduction, and this is who I am. This is the class that I am going to, my likes, dislikes, hobbies. This is something that we're expecting out of the child in terms of social interaction, and the child has practiced all of this with the parent. Now what happens is, at times these reactions are unable to come out. The child knows it all, the child knows how to interact, but everything just gets played inside. The child feels, okay, I've been said that, who are you? I've practiced it, but it does not play outside. The child is not able to manifest it externally, is not able to put it out in terms of behaviors externally. So that could be one problem. That's how internalization happens to children, where they tend to be anxious, very withdrawn, very within themselves. So all the problem is residing inside. They also, there's a very high apathetic state, which is lack of interest in academic, social, personal skills and hobbies that they used to like. So there is a lot of apathy that they go through. Then children and adolescents with internalizing behavior problems may have a diagnosis of depression. Anxiety can be separation anxiety, can be PTSD, can be some kind of eating disorders that we can find in children. So, children with such internalizing behavior do have comorbidity, they do have other conditions also that we can look forward to. So it could be anxiety, it could be depression, there could be some eating disorder, some body image issues. They can be going through PTSD, and PTSD can happen through in a lot of context for children nowadays. Now, also they may also exhibit school or exam fear, some body image issues that they are going through. There can be some sort of somatic symptoms. Somatic symptom is something in the body, they are not experiencing anything. So somatic symptoms could be very close to somatization disorders, where there are symptoms of a headache, but they do not biologically and medically suffice that they have something called headache. So it can also be found that there are screening tools usually used for students to identify a very high level of internalizing behavior and are not sensitive, thus are not used in practice. So the fact is that there are some tools which are used for screening, but the screening is only done when the child has very high level of internalization. Either the depression is too high, the anxiety, the social withdrawal is too high, only then it is rectified. Also, it is not very sensitive to each and every one. So you can say it's not culture biased, it is not individually crafted or not very objective, and not very sensitive also to every and each individuals and the different kinds of problems that we have. That's why screening tools Wells have mentioned in 2019 are not very well used for internalizing behavior or rectifying internalizing behavior. Also, on the other hand, if we have something called an internalizing behavior, We equally have something which is called as externalizing behaviors. So these externalizing behavioral issue refers to a group of problems that are apparent in terms of the actions that are displayed by the child, and these might be negative reactions to the external situation. So let's just understand, internalizing behavioral issues are issues which are completely within the individual. It is residing in the individual. Could be anxiety, could be depression, could be something as we spoke about. It could be a trauma that just pushes the child inside. And a lot of children not talking, mutism is something which could be internalizing behavior. Children in class suddenly go mute, not speaking to their social conditions, not interacting with anyone, can be internalization. In contrary to that, we have something called externalizing behavioral issues, which refers to a group of problems that are apparent in terms that the actions that are displayed by the child, and these are negative actions which are displayed by the child to external situations. So there could be a negative behavior that they show to an external situation. Also, when we speak about more differences in terms of more internalizing and more internal externalizing behavior, remember, low behavioral, whenever we do not inhibit our behavior, we are ready to put it out, we are ready to show it out. It's characterized by impulsivity, hyperactivity, and aggression. Also, high behavioral, when we talk about high behavioral issue, it could be something characterized by anxious, avoidant, and withdrawn behaviors. So it could be something that we talk about in terms of we withdraw, like, lead to something which is withdrawing of behavior. So remember, externalizing key point to identify such children. You will find they never inhibit their behaviors. You will never find them closed. You will never look forward to such children that they're trying to not show. They're not trying to put out their behaviors. These would be someone who is more hyperactive, all there in front of you, aggressive, very impulsive, do not think at all and just do it. Whereas when we talk about the internalizing, it's characterized by anxious, avoidant, and withdrawn behaviors. You tend to find these children to be a little inward, inhibited, not speaking, probably not doing situation specific activities, and probably all coveted inside. Then moving on, like, and understanding more externalization. Externalization consists of disruptive behaviors. It's negative behaviors to the external situation. So remember, it's always going to be a very hyperactive children. Aggression, delinquency, truancy, delinquent behaviors are age inappropriate, getting into illegal activities. A lot of aggression is included in here in the child. The child is very loud in terms of the construct and the context. The child's aggression has been, found to be a very strong predictor of violence and adult crime. So it is stated children who are very hyperactive is fine. Children tend to be hyperactive with a lot of energy inside. But if there is, high sense of aggression, too much of volatileness in the child, which is exhibited in every situation, that could be an indicator to child's later behavior getting into something which could be violent. Delinquent behaviors can indicate child adult crimes, and Eisenberg has supported this in 2001. It is also important to note that dichotomy is not comprehensive by any means. In fact, there could be an overlap between the two, which is very true. There can be children who are both, are internalized also and externalized also. So they can be both. Then internalizing behavioral problems often misunderstood and overlooked, especially until about 1980s. It was, initially it was found that internalizing behavioral issues are something which is not, consisting of any sort of emotional and behavioral problems. That is not true. It was misunderstood. People did not pay attention to such behaviors. We actually felt that depression in children cannot happen, but that is not true. Internalizing behavior comprises of specific type of emotional and behavioral problems in children and adolescents, which is Merrill 2013 has supported this, and it consists of issues that are based over controlled symptoms. They also contain issues that are based on over controlled symptoms. It refers to the fact that problems are manifested when children have a maladaptive control of their own internal cognitive and emotional state. I'll give you an example of this. This is trying to say internalizing behaviors at times can come when the child is in a situation where there are people who are controlling his behavior. So when there is a maladaptive control in the child's environment, there's a possibility child starts developing emotional and cognitive concerns. So if there's an over controlling parent, if a parent has a very authoritative, authoritarian parenting wants to be told about everything. There says the last say, very dictatorship kind of controlling when it comes into child's life. Thus it can lead to a lot of problems, which includes internalizing behavior issues. So that's how children starts, stop expressing their feelings and their cognitive and emotional problems, and leads to depression, can lead to somatoform problems. Also, eating disorders and body image issues, one another thing. When you have a controlling environment, you've been told what to do, what not to eat. That's how children develop issues like this. And it all can be detected through external observation and measurement. So that was something which was about externalizing and internalizing behavior. Let's understand a little more differences through the image that we have on top. So externalizing states that it violates basic right of others, which is very true. See, external, always remember, by the term external suggests everything is outside. You're harming outside, you are disruptive outside. So basic violence, it is violating the rights of others, violating the social rules and norms. They throw things, they destroy things, they throw a lot of tantrum. So when you destroy things, throw things and tantrums, there could be stealing issues. There could be damage to property and control. These people are deviant and argue. So there could be a problem of conduct disorders in these children, disruptive disorders, antisocial behavior. So these are all symptoms. Then we come to externalizing behaviors, which exhibit painful shyness, very inside. They are teased by peers, bullied by peers, neglected by peers. They tend to obviously become apathetic, start feeling depressive, anorexic, which is again body, eating issues, bulimic. They are socially withdrawn. They don't want to be a part of it. Whereas on the other hand, they also, at the same time, when you are bullied and you have been teased by peers and there is an extreme shyness, you cannot express your feelings and thoughts. Remember, this socially withdrawn issue can lead to depression, can lead to suicidal features and gestures also by children. On the other hand, the externalizing behavior are something that ignores teachers reprimanding, ignores the punishment given to them. They do show very obsessive compulsive behaviors, causes threat, physical harm to animals, to people outside, destroy properties of people. They're very obscene gestures, uses lewd and obscene gestures, not very appropriate in the society, very hyperactive. On the other, the internalized behaviors are already very scared, they are phobic in condition, they have low self esteem, excessive worry about how people are thinking about me, how they are perceiving about me. Once children develop all of this, which is internalization, I feel mutism is another thing that comes to them and should be taken care of. Now, from external internalizing, let's start with the first internalizing problem that can come to children that we have, started experiencing in today's time, and that is depression in children and adolescent. So, this is something which was initially, when depression was identified as a psychological issue and stated as a disorder by the classification manuals like diagnostic manuals and international classification. Depression was of the old. Depression was of the people who are 60 plus. Depression was of the people when you did not have work to do. But now it is changing. Disappointments, setbacks of life, difficulties in life, bullying, teasing by people are also leading to internalizing behavior and developing a feeling of dullness. So, however, eventually, with the period of time, children, adults, and teenagers learn to cope with it. The feeling of dullness goes. But depression, remember, is not just having a bad mood or occasional feeling of feeling down or feeling sad or feeling low. It is a consistent dullness in yourself where there's a lack of appetite. You do not feel like doing things that you like. You do not like to do the hobbies that you got into, a lot of apathetic state that you go into. Parents need to be concerned because and contact professional counselors needs to be contact when their child has extreme sadness or too much of shyness in them. When they're not able to speak what they're going through, they do not want to go to school. Please, that's the time that parents should, if it's lasting for weeks and months and longer than that, remember it is hampering the child's ability academically, socially, and later in daily life if you do not look into it for months. So this requires support from counselors. Also, depression exists on a continuum of severity, mild and low. So it starts from zero, low, there is mild, there is obviously an average sense of feeling, then there is higher sense of feeling, and then there is extreme. So severe symptoms would be obviously something that will impact an individual's life. Mild symptoms will make people work, and low symptoms Low sense of dullness will not disrupt your daily living, but high severity will cause problem to children. They will not be able to manage themselves, will not be able to look into themselves, and it will not only hamper them academically but also socially, interpersonally, their personal growth, etc. It is primarily characterized by the following symptoms. See, there is a depressed mood, lack of activity, loss of appetite, there are sleep disturbances, either it's insomnia or hypersomnia, too much of sleep or too less of sleep or no sleep at all. There is extreme weight gain or extreme weight loss, psychomotor retardation, which is the physical act. Psychomotor is, psych is this, motor is hand movements. It's very slow. You tell them to pick up a water bottle, it might take them minutes to do that. So it's extremely slow movement or agitation, loss of energy or fatigue, difficulty in concentrating, there is difficulty in decision making, concentrating, paying attention, deciding, feeling, they have a sense of worthiness, so they have a sense of guilt, worthlessness, helplessness, and hopelessness. And there is obviously recurrent feeling of death. That's why we mentioned suicidal gestures are also common with children who are having a feeling of sadness. Let's go through the image. Some common symptoms that we have. There is helplessness, there are weight changes, there is guilt, and also thought of suicide is something which is coming up in children very prevalently. Loss of energy, they don't feel like doing anything. Weight changes are there. Ideally, at times it goes too high, shoots too much, and if there are crying spouts, crying and too much of loneliness, they might lose weight. There's a feeling of helplessness, they feel very dull, they feel very low. There is isolation, there's too much of anger, difficulty sleeping as we suggested, and body image issues. Combination of something which can be seen in children as stated. If we see this for weeks and months, a support from the counselor and mental health is extremely important. Now let's see how depression is seen in different age category to identify that what it would look like. So for preschoolers, the ones who are in preschoolers starting from 1 plus, which could go on from 2 to 5 years of age, there is high difficulty for preschoolers to verbalize their emotions, due to which, this is missed. At times we feel children are quiet only. They probably don't like it, but that's the reason, we miss it. Nevertheless, there is persistent complaint about crying, crying bouts, irritation, physical symptoms due to which, to these children feel ignored. They are something which is leading to difficulties, and at the same time, they're not able to understand the preschoolers who are depressed and are not identified, because as a preschooler it's so difficult to identify them. The ability to talk and express increases gradually until the middle childhood. Some of the symptoms that children have simple, that of adults with depression. As you grow old, imagine as 6 7, these children, the illness will change. Now it's recognizable. These children, you can identify, they're closer to teenagers. So 6 to 7, you will find middle, the symptoms are too much. Absenteeism in school, dullness of mood, no friends, sitting alone in the class. It's evidently seen in these children. They exhibit some very similar behavior like preschoolers, like mutism. They cry, there are irritation, they don't want to speak to other people, they want to keep quiet. And at times, said that children who have dull mood are at higher risk during puberty. Is extremely high during puberty because they're already at the verge of going through so much of trouble. They are experiencing loneliness, so they're at the higher risk. Speaking of children from 13 to 18, this is the time they need to be involved in various extracurricular activities. They need to grow personality wise. So warning signs can include in terms of thought of future friendships. Sometimes they might feel, if I'm left alone, what will happen? Also, some warning signs can be categorized in terms of these. They are very attention seeking, or they are at one corner, do not speaking to others. Also, behaviors which are incorrect according to age, substance abuse, delinquent behavior, true and see that they get into. This is all because of attention seeking. And drug abuse, getting into substances is one major problem in puberty that depressive children goes through. Suicidal gestures and attacks is another problem. So immediate help, I feel, is needed when we speak about teenagers, because teenagers is a very sensitive time. They need to be looked upon. I feel as soon as you're 16 and 20, that is the time that one, less than a quarter of life is gone, and it is a life where identity is formed. You need to know who you are, what you want to be in life, and this is if the confusion persists and you do not know, and there is High signs which categorize you as attention seeking, dull mood, not knowing what to do, confused about life. It could be a problem for all through life. So, speaking of that, this is how depression and feeling of dullness will look from preschoolers to children to later childhood and adolescent. Now, this is again how depression goes through stages. So, stage one, you will find all is known, suspected presentation of depression. So, this suspected presentation of depression suggests there's an assessment, there is support, psychoeducation, active monitoring is required. Stage two is persistent subthreshold depressive symptoms. This is like low intensity psychomotor interventions can be done. So, how do you take care of these stages? First is psychoeducate the child, tell the parents, inform the parents the kind of support, what kind of assessment can be done that we identify what level of depression it is. Once it's known, if it's known it's a low intensity psychosocial intervention, what all can you do for a mild and moderate depression? You can do some psychological tests, you can do psychosocial testing, you can make intervention, counseling can be given, further assessments can be done, constant support can be given to the child. If there is depression is moderate and moving to severe, remember now medication is the thing which is required. Constant support, high psychosocial, psychoeducation and psychological support, combined treatment, collaborative care, referral for assessment and intervention is required. Also, stage four is a time it's severe and complex depression, it's exceeding severity. Medication, they're very high risk people, constant observation is required, constant support is required, they require therapy at times if it is not being treated. ECT, electroconvulsive therapy in simple terms, electric shocks is required. Mild professional support or inpatient care is something that should be given to severe extreme depression. So this is how we need to take care of different stages of depression, going from very low to mild to severe. That completes with depression in children. Let's move to some social and academic related issues that children go through. This is something very common. Academic issues are something which children now, I feel in today's time, it's very common. It could be because of lack of motivation. They've lost motivation in academics, or there is less concentration, or there's a sense of worthlessness, along with the feeling of hopelessness, can impact learning of the child. For instance, the child with depression may not be able to concentrate for a longer period of time. Also, if you keep teaching them something, there's a difficulty in understanding. They probably lose track, do not finish homework, do not copy work from school, very distracted, fail to replicate what is done at home and what is done in school. So they lack initiative, cannot start, create anything. Also, attempting anything can be a problem to them. Also, they may also be getting negative and unwanted attention from others around them, and especially teachers. At times when we realize that children are going through some issues, academic issues and social concerns, parents starts increasing the child's feeling of worthlessness. We pay so much of attention to the child starts recognizing that there's something wrong with me. This at times could lead to social withdrawal. Imagine if the child is not doing well, and every day, as a teacher and a parent, you keep solidifying and concretely putting it to the child that you are not doing well. What is going wrong? Why your work is not complete? So that unwanted attention that goes to the child every time, fixes them that, okay, there is something wrong with me. I probably don't need to be a part of this environment. Leading to social withdrawal, the child will stop going to school, stop interacting with people now. So at times it could lead to worse condition and worse situations. Also, familial conflict, parental divorce, or normal difficulties with regard to learning can also lower down the child's school performance. However, if this continues over a period of time, or if declines in academic performance exist without any explanation, this can be a cause of concerns for other internalizing problems. It could lead to trauma, lead to depression, it can lead to bipolar conditions of the child. So we need to know if the problem is also grounded and enclosed by familial conflict, there is parental divorce and separation, or there are sibling rivalries which are very strong. It can worsen the child's academic growth. So, to have a good academic and social interaction of the child, I feel parental support, a good grooming, a good family environment is paramount. It's equally paramount. And I usually feel that most of the things that the child encounters in later life as difficulty is coming from an early childhood time, which is coming from the kind of parenting the child has received. So again, these are pillars of the child's life: the parenting, the kind of family support, the family environment the child gets. Moving ahead, let's talk about another problem that we experience in children, which is trouble with peers. This is again very common. Children go through a lot today. There is not. We are not going to talk about just the fact that children are being bullied. There's far other physical bully, that a hostile feeling that children go through. Trouble with peers. Healthy friendship in school is so important for a child to grow personality wise. It promotes positive behavioral emotional adjustment, and also may lay the foundation for a healthy relationship in future. So when we speak about this talks about, having great friendship in school will not only let the child go to school every day, but be become very healthily competitive, very positive environment, and comparison of the child is in a very good way. And seeing your friends grow with you from 5 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 years, which is like at 5 you see your friends at 6. This social interaction expands your emotional adjustment and your social paradigm. You become more vibrant in your social interaction. So healthy peers, healthy friendship is extremely important. It's a foundation for how you will develop in future in terms of interpersonal relationships. Also, children with depression are, usually ignored, are rejected by peers. So they ideally, experience ignorance, some sort of rejection, or some sort of, when we call it, some sort of boredom that comes, or some sort of ignorance that comes from their peers. At the same time, this feeling of ignorance, or probably bullying and teasing, can make the child feel that friends are not important, they are boring, and I am okay alone. It's a process. I will have friends with time. If I go out of school, then I will have friends. Imagine it starts like this. I'm fine alone. The child's uh, start feeling internally. And it is an example of internalizing behavioral issues. The child's feeling it's okay that I'm alone, it's okay, I can manage it. If the child, on the other hand, is aggressive, they are going to be very rough. They have very rude behavior, because of which, this leads to a lot of isolation from other peers. They have this thing that no one likes me, I am worthlessness. Whereas on the other hand, it would be that I'm not needed. So on an external side, these children are rude, very extreme behaviors, aggressive, and they feel that I'm worthless. And on the other end, children feels the fact that I'm not wanted. So this is how, a troubled peer group can lead to. Also, there are high risk of being bullied by others, and further, it could, if you are being bullied by others, remember, bully can lead to making you feel alone, getting you into substance abuse, delinquency. They can make you do wrong things. Parents are aware, and for this, I feel teachers should be aware the kind of friends and peer gathering children are into each other. Keep a check on their behavior. Parents should check their child's bags, giving the maximum amount of suicidal attempts, and especially very high in adolescent. Thus, any form of suicidal ideation behavior should be taken seriously. If a child says that I'm unwanted, I don't want to, I just want to die, people will be happy if I'm gone. Such statements should be please looked forward to and taken care of. Depression and substance abuse are one of the reasons that children go, show suicidal behaviors. At times, it could be ignorance from teachers, it could be ignorance from friends, it could be withdrawal, and some other signs could be self-harming behavior, starting from small self-harming behavior like cutting their fingers, enjoying using something sharp on their hand. These are things that should be, taken care of. Then there are other disorders with depression that should be taken care. These other disorders are a part of depression. These are the different kind of depression that we have. Then let's start. And this is dysthymia. Dysthymia is the first kind that we have. Dysthymia is persistent depressive disorder, shares many features with major depression, but differs mainly in two aspects. So speaking of that, it differs mainly with two aspects. First is individual depression. Dysthymia talks about which is two. It's a longer state of depression, low mood. It goes on for 2 years in adults and at least 1 year in children. So it's a persistent state of mild depression, low to moderate feeling of depression that goes on. In adults, it lasts for two. So the term dysthemic is for 2 years. So major features of depression is seen for 2 years, and then 1 year it is seen in adolescent and children. Depressed mood and dysthymia may last for most of the day, but if episodes of full-blown mania. So we speak of this. There is a full-blown, bipolar. Let's understand what is bipolar. Bipolar talks about alternate phases of depression and mania. Mania is euphoric state of mind. When we speak of a euphoric state of mind, it's full-blown state of mania, extreme elation that lasts for 7 days. At times, it's lesser also. Speaking of it, when we speak of it, it's extreme sense of mania. People are very loud. There is expensive buying. There is clubbing in women. Males brag about it. Experiences, expensive spending, promiscuous sexual activity, which is extremely high. That's something which is there. And then we have something which includes episode of hypomania, which is lesser severity, not very high, which lasts for hypermania, something which lasts for 7 days. Hypomania lasts for something which is 4 days. And then there is major depression. So you have manic state and depressive, which is coming in alternative, which is bipolar 1. 2 talks about hypo, lesser manic state. So period of mania or hypomania characterizes feeling of energy, invincibility. There is flood of ideas. It's rushing, gushing of ideas that is there. You have such high state of mood, grandiosity. As I said, bragging is there, expensive buying. There is lesser sleep. People are very loud when they are talking, and it can lead to poor decision making, low cognitive activities, risk taking, etc. And also needed that manic is so should be taken care of. At times we might have suicidal gestures during mania, and you might not even know what we are doing. So that is like a huge trouble that should be taken care of. That people who have already been diagnosed with bipolar 1 and 2 should be monitored. If mania is extremely high, very grandiose, is another disorder which is a serious version of bipolar, includes depressive state and similar to the dysthymia and hypomania. In this, depressive state might be characterized by low energy, social withdrawal, feeling of inadequacy, brooding attitude, and mania is hypermania here. So it's a little serious again. Cyclosthemic comes in cycling, keeps going on and on. Depression, mania, depression, mania, depression, mania, depression, mania. So that's something that we need to look forward to. And depression, the symptoms of depression are very slightly depending upon the type and range of mild to severe. In general, symptoms can, as mentioned on top, as the picture that we have, which is feeling of hopelessness, energy, irritability, eating behaviors, thoughts of self-harm. There is suicide, sleep changes are there, interest in hobbies and activities, and difficulty in concentrating, etc., etc. that we have. So we need to be very careful. Then we have that at times depression can lead to suicidal behaviors, and if not taken, bipolar also that we have is risky, because bipolar is a grandiose state of mind, and it can lead to behaviors that the individual themselves don't know. And if it's found in children and adolescents themselves are such unkempt generation that they need to be looked upon. Irritability, change in appetite, energy low, difficulty concentration, etc. is so tough. So that is something, that is another disorders of depression, which is again very risky to the generation that we talk about. Let's talk about other kind of disorders. Apart this depression, we have anxiety. Anxiety becoming very common in children today. Children just speak of anxiety as a very leisured word. I am going through anxiety. I have anxiety. I'm very anxious today. I have extreme anxiety. Because of anxiety, I cannot do this. This is becoming something which is very commonly used by children, and because it is being experienced also. Not all the 100% are experiencing anxiety, but yes, the percentage from 2030 is increasing to a lot as a number. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is a feeling of worry and apprehensiveness, and decreases. It is obviously its state of unkemptness, their sense of worriness, nervousness, and apprehensive state of mind. It could be leading to an anxiety disorder. Anxiety disorders has broad category. It has symptoms which are not only physiological but also behavioral and cognitive. There are subjective feeling, discomfort, dreaded feeling. There is extreme sweating and palpitation, avoiding and escaping feeling. Some of the symptoms could be, breathlessness. They feel breathlessness. There is extreme sweating and palpitation, feeling of dying and choking, and very unrealistic and negative thoughts. The fact of feeling dying and choking is an unrealistic and negative thought that we experience. Panic attacks, misinterpretation of situation and arousals, and oversensitivity, And at the same time, it is at times, there are oversensitivity to physical cues. Sudden change in the environment can make people anxious, like putting a fan on, they become anxious. They also speaking of what do you call that? Let's take an example: sitting in a room, and the adolescent is feeling anxious. If the room closes once or twice, the anxiety will keep rising. Why the room is getting closed again and again? Why people are coming in? Why it's being used? Why the same door is being using again? So, smallest of change in environment can be excessively dreadful for anyone: children, adolescent, teenagers, etc. That there is a general in worry, and if it extremes, it gets categorized into different disorders. Some of the disorders of anxiety disorders are GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. We have phobias, we have social anxiety disorder, panic disorder. Let's discuss them. Generalized anxiety disorder is an anxiety disorder where there is persistent excessive worry that interferes your daily living and activities, and uh, at the same time, we need to know that generalized anxiety disorder does not have a cause and a cue. So the anxiety is generalized. That means we do not know the reason why anxiety is happening to us. That's why it's called generalized. Generalized anxiety disorder, it's general worry all the time, can be leading to panic disorders also at times. When there is an apprehensive state of mind all the time, it can lead to symptoms which could be instant recurrent anxiety coming again and again and again. It could lead to panic attacks. Panic attack is another disorder, which is recurrent anxiety attacks is panic. There's a feeling of choking, dying, losing control. Then we have social anxiety disorder, which is intense anxiety, being embarrassed and rejected in social environment. Phobias are irrational fears that we hold, excessive irrational fears of object, event, and activity, etc. And there are different kind of phobias, which are agoraphobia, specific phobia, and social anxiety is also, which is a disorder of a kind. Let's understand what are phobias. Phobias are something which are irrational fears. And stated irrational phobias can be of three kinds majorly. There could be specific phobia, there could be social phobia, and agoraphobia. Social phobia, when we talk about specific phobias, these phobias are phobias of specific events, like phobias of lizards, insects, places, heights, etc. There's an object which is the cue for the irrational fear. Then we have social anxiety, which is as social phobia that we speak of. And and at the same time, we need to know that when we speak about social phobias at that same point of time, it's very similarly as mentioned above, is something which is intense anxiety in being embarrassed in a social condition and social situation. And at the same time, agoraphobia is knowing the situation but not going to unknown situation. So it's very similar, social and agaro, a little difference. Because of agoraphobia, people can stop going outside. And also, at the same time, we need to know it can cause difficulty in day-to-day living. Phobias can be very difficult to manage and to be managed well. What are the causes of phobia? How can we say that phobias can happen to us? They can happen because of genetic. We all know genetic makeup and makeup temperament can go from parents to offspring. And Kagan et al. Has shown that behaviorally it's inhibited in toddlers like shyness, timidness, and show a higher risk of development in specific phobia at the age of 7 to 8. So specific phobias are something which can be developed at an age of 7 to 8, which is right, because children are developing fear of insects, animal, places, etc. Family factors could be troubled families, could be one of those. Parental divorce, separation, etc. can be those. A traumatic experience, experiencing a frightening traumatic condition can instigate a phobia. Learning about negative experiencing, which is knowing something which is constantly going, a trauma that you're living. Probably it could be a plane crash which has gone, something, earthquake, lost a lot of lives and property and people. Water body related accidents, that can also be something which could lead to phobias. Any specific object where you've lived through. So phobias are three kinds according to DSM, as we said: specific, social phobia, and agaro. Agaro is phobia of being outside, going to public places. That's why agoraphobia can restrict your interaction with the environment. And at the same time, we have something which is phobia of social situations, which is public speaking, using the public toilet, going to a social interaction, which is social phobia. Then, causes of social phobia. Social phobia is something which I feel, being human beings, is such a trouble. We are social animals. Interaction is a key. How can that be inhibited? So, what could be some causes? First is biological, which is brain structure. Amygdala plays a very important role in controlling fear of an individual. There could be some malfunctioning. Overactive amygdala may heighten the fear response, increase anxiety in social situation. A negative experience, which is developing a condition which, a social situation and embarrassment, falling down on a stage and people laughing, being reprimanded in class could be one. Learning about negative experience of others, parents being, be model of social such thing. Like for example, a parent is also having social problems and does not go outside. The child experiences that this is something that they need to learn. They equally become fearful of such conditions. So I think role modeling should be done very thoughtfully in children because it could lead to a lot of problems. Lex exposure is another problem. Phobias can be developed when children do not have something which is when children do not are exposed to environment, social condition, etc. Also, parenting, wrong kind of parenting, authoritative parenting, permissive, ignorant parenting can lead to, when you reject your children, control too much can lead to phobias. So those are some kinds. Also, socio-cultural factors. It could be, change in culture, cultural change, or culture phobias, some causes of social phobias. Now let's come to another kind of problem that, children are experiencing today is post-traumatic stress disorder. Like, it's a stress disorder post-trauma. It is established after a stressful event of life. It could be a life-threatening event, a traumatic condition, commonly now seen in adults and but also in children, because trauma is now perceived by children very differently. It could be, a traumatic stressful condition could be a terror attack, earthquakes, natural calamities. It could be something which is, as mentioned, a concentration camp, earthquake, tsunami, school violence, neglect, serious accident, reprimanding children in front of other siblings and friends, loss of a loved one can be a trauma. Stress symptoms are very common, but they may decrease over time. Thus, it is important to remember to diagnose post-traumatic stress disorder as soon as it's seen. See, post-traumatic have symptoms also very different. You get flashbacks. At the same time, there are flashbacks that we experience, and we also have memories, the crying bouts, and we relive those moments. Those reliving of become terrible, and these memories are brief but bitter experiences happen before the trauma, and at times the children or adolescents have lived the trauma. It becomes very tough for them. So that is something, is post-traumatic stress disorder. Now it's getting very common in children. Reason, the kind of neglect children go through for a year, for 6 months, for 3 months, serious accident, humiliation in school, PTSD in different stages of age. So pre-growing school children might, you will see symptoms like they cry and scream a lot. There's a loss of appetite. There is night, as I said, there are tremors, night dreams, and separation from caregivers, and can also cause trauma from children. Fear of being alone, fear of being stranded by a stranger, picked up by a stranger is again a trauma for preschoolers. School-going children, you will find some symptoms, loss of appetite, poor concentration, nightmares, extreme guilt and shame, anxiety, fear in situation, decreasing academic performance is another problem. And in adolescent, there are drastic changes. Feeling of depression, there are nightmares, social isolation, there is drug abuse that comes into play. These children have loss of appetite, very reckless sexual activity. They find multiple partners. Promiscuous sexual activity begins in children's mind and they do it. It's very impulsive behavior, poor decision making, academic growth goes down. They neglect their academics. College students looks different. Inability to grow, decreasing academic problems. They don't know who they are, what they want to do. There is social withdrawal, isolation, dissociative tendencies, multiple personality behavior. They act differently with friends, and parents, and with people outside. Become very edgy and restless. Hypervigilance, sleep related problems, avoiding pleasure activities, negative cognition and effect. So this is something which PTSD looks like in, children. When we speak of PTSD, nightmares are very common, and it's common across ages. Children, adolescent, teenagers, college going, insomnia is very common. Yes, withdrawal becomes with time. Numbness is experienced in extreme PTSD by children also. Children experience numbness, which is quite, it's a big check that we need to be doing, and extreme help is required. Another kind that we talk about is social withdrawal and eating disorders. Social withdrawal is associated with constructs like shyness, isolation, rejection, inhibition, social reluctance, and neglect. So, withdrawal first starts with shyness, then moves because it's getting isolated, being rejected, moving completely away. With social withdrawal, we have something which is eating disorders also that we have done. I'll explain you eating disorders, which are three. We have anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating. See, binge eating is now very common in today's time. It can be a reason from social withdrawal also. First, they are coping, anxiety coping, binge eating too much. Exam are coming, binge eating. Friends are not talking, let's go eat and out. Let's order something. And unfortunately, today's quick service food, online deliveries are making binge eating another problem in our generation. So binge eating could be that. Another is anorexia. Anorexia happens because of wrong role modeling of perception of your body. So there is extreme shrinking of body that happens, excessive weight loss, and not an appropriate idea about weight of yourself. So these people look like pieces of skeleton, sheet mask, a complete sheet of mass on them, 30 kgs and a 5'5" height teenager. That's how they look like. Anorexic is because of wrong role modeling. There is extreme dieting, extreme exercise. They're going fatigue but still exercising. And then there is bulimia. Bulimia is very common with adults and now it's getting common in children, which is excessive eating, binge eating, and then purging it out, which is throwing the food out, vomiting it out. Some children vomited using something, putting their fingers in the mouth or using a brush. At times they use medicines also. Very common in children nowadays and adolescent. Adolescent, why? Because they want to be socially acceptable. They go out and eat with their friends. And but later there is obviously you cannot digest the amount of food. That's not your appetite. That's not the kind of food that you're eating. They vomit it out. So again, a problem of eating disorders which causes body image issues to children further. So when we talk about causes body image issues, uh, it is something that is very severe nowadays because children are grouped with peers which do not have the right kind of understanding of what kind of image of body should we have, what is the right eating habits, what that's the reason children should always, while growing up with parents, parenting should involve diet, good health, activity, and exercise. This is becoming paramount in our country, and eating disorders are increasing in the generation of adolescent, which is this generation that we have in eating. Even with adults, middle-aged generation is also going through binge eating problems nowadays. That's why obesity in our country is increasing. Then social withdrawal is one of the cause for it. So we need to know social withdrawal is used as an umbrella term to understand a behavioral prototype which could be shyness, isolation, rejection, etc. Behavioral inhibition is understood as a biological, wariness of exposure of novel situations. So these people ideally cannot, move out. They completely close themselves in a situation. And shyness is a self-conscious behavior. It starts from not feeling accepted. So, it could start from not feeling accepted only physically, which could body image issues, and then not feeling accepted. It is a perceived evaluation which has gone wrong. You perceive yourself as incorrect at like complete negative interpretation of self, which then starts from ignoring your needs, ignoring your worth, and then putting yourself in a shell. So when an individual is watching others from far retaining unoccupied and when in a social company is called social decadence. So when an individual is watching others from far or is remaining unoccupied in a social company, it's called social decadence. And at the same time, social withdrawal thus is linked to psychological maladaptation. So social withdrawal is a psychosocial maladaptation. So when we are not able to adjust with the world, not being able to adjust with society, we withdraw. Our behavioral expression gets covered. So let's take an example, friend coming to you saying hi, you have a shyness. You will just and hello and move away. This will increase when you start watching others from far and you start withdrawing yourself. Watching others, company unoccupied, finding space, you are enjoying your space. Slowly this space gets far more smaller, you do not require it. You feel your behavioral expression behaviors could lead to internalizing behavior, can obviously lead to social withdrawal. Shyness is not generally associated with predictive of anxiety disorder in adolescent, but shyness is throughout childhood. Higher anxiety is something, shyness can be something which is higher shyness, lesser anxiety, lesser shyness, higher anxiety. So we need to know anxiety is something which is a hyperactive thing. So if you have high shyness, you will not have anxiety, much anxiety. Also, it is reflected in the child's personality. Unknown relationship between the shyness in childhood and motivation of behaviors is also seen. If the child is very, very shy, less motivation. Highly likely in direct, inversely proportional. More shy that you are, the more that you withdrawing yourself, lesser you'll be motivated for society and living. That we come down to. Also, we have some, thought that we need to be giving with shyness and understand. Introversion is separate. Social anxiety is separate and shyness is separate. Introversion is a personality trait, it is not a disease. People are introverted because they choose to work internally. They choose to prefer low setting. They limit it to their social energy. They like being alone. It's a happy state. It's a good state. And they are very productive. They love it there. And they have one friend. It's not that they're alone in the world. They have that one friend that they can go on with. And it's not something, that we will look forward to, that it could develop to a disease. No, introversion is not equivalent to any psychological disorder. It's a personality trait. They love being alone. They are solitary workers. They are shy in a way that they enjoy the company of their own. And there is no helplessness, worthlessness here. They don't feel that we are, less worthy. It's just that they get overstimulated by the presence of many people. They feel too many people, cannot handle. Less people is my zone. So they prefer smaller group. They prefer working alone. Solitary work is their choice. Then social anxiety is, again, it's a disorder. We have social phobia also, which is very equivalent to social anxiety. This is a mental illness. So when we talk about, so overwhelming fear, apprehensive state of mind of humiliation, that I will not be able to stand up on the stage. People will laugh on me. There is a humiliating state, and obviously it leads to a high amount of stress in the person. They can go fatigue on a stage. If you make them stand up, they might just go fatigue. They just faint over there. And there is fear, a lot of triggering factors. That's a mental illness. Shyness, again, is a personality trait which can lead to social withdrawal. Shyness is a fear of negative judgment. You are shy because you don't want to be socially judged. You just don't want to interact because you feel people will judge you. People will take you wrong. There's a lack of confidence with strangers. There's a lack of initiation of social, activities. And these people are more comfortable with known people. So it's a personality trait like introversion, but on the negative side. Social withdrawal is a clinical condition which starts from shyness. So this is something that we need to know in terms of children disorders, starting from anxiety, depression, social withdrawal, eating disorders, shyness that we find in children today. So these were internalizing, externalizing behavior today in the unit 5 of adolescent problems and children problem. Hope we could understand the bifurcation of what are internalized and externalized behaviors in children. Thank you.